What's the weirdest mystery you've ever witnessed that you still can't fully explain? When I was about 16, my parents left me home alone for the weekend while they went to visit some friends in another city. Everything was normal on the first day, but the second night, something happened that still creeps me out. I was watching a movie in the living room when I clearly heard footsteps upstairs. I thought maybe I'd left a window open and the wind was moving something, so I went up to check. Everything was closed and in place. I went back downstairs, a bit nervous, but tried to ignore it. A few hours later, around midnight, I got a notification on my phone. Motion detected in the upstairs hallway. My dad had installed a cheap security camera because my younger sister used to say she saw things up there. I figured it was a glitch, but I opened the app and saw a clearly human-shaped silhouette standing in front of my bedroom door. The room was empty, but the camera picked something up. I worked up the courage, grabbed a kitchen knife. Not the smartest idea, I know, but it was all I had. Went upstairs, turned on all the lights. And there was no one. My bedroom door was closed, and all the windows were locked. I checked the entire house. Nothing. I rewatched the video over and over, a figure, completely still, standing in front of my door. Then it just disappears without moving. It just vanishes. The next day, I told my parents. My dad said it was probably a camera glitch, but the figure was too defined, and it lined up perfectly with the footsteps I'd heard. I still can't explain it, and I've kept the video in cloud storage ever since. Sometimes I try to convince myself it was a shadow, a weird optical illusion, but what unsettles me most is that the figure was facing away from the camera, as if it had already gone inside my room. What's the smallest, creepiest thing that's ever happened to you that you just can't shake? A few years ago, I moved into a small apartment by myself. One night, I dropped my keys behind the couch. When I moved it to get them, I found a tiny door built into the wall, like dollhouse-sized. I thought it was some weird leftover from the previous tenant. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a single photograph of me, sitting on that same couch wearing the same clothes. But I'd never seen that photo before in my life, and I lived alone. Reddit. Have you ever experienced something supernatural that still haunts you? When I was 19, I worked night shifts at a small gas station in a rural town. It was the kind of place that barely got any customers after 11 p.m., so most nights I just sat behind the counter, reading or watching something on my phone. One night, around 2:30 a.m., a man walked in. He looked completely normal, clean clothes, polite, but something about him felt off. His eyes didn't blink, not once. And when I asked if he needed help, he just stared at me for a full 5 seconds before saying, "You shouldn't be here." I laughed it off nervously, assuming it was a joke, but he just kept staring. Then he walked straight past me into the back storage room, which was supposed to be locked. I followed him immediately, but the room was empty. There was nowhere he could have gone, no exit. I even checked the security footage. Here's the creepy part. On the footage, you can see the door open, but no one walks in. No one is there at all. I'm talking to thin air, reacting, even moving out of the way, but on the camera, the man never existed. I quit 2 weeks later after I started hearing knocking from the inside of that same storage room every night at exactly 2:30. It still happens, according to the new guy, but he doesn't go check anymore. He just listens. What's the most illegal thing that secretly happened at your high school? Back in high school, I always had a weird feeling that something shady was going on in the maintenance building behind the gym. It was locked most of the time, and only a few staff members ever went in or out. Rumors flew around, drugs, gambling, even weapons, but nobody really knew. That changed my senior year. One of the janitors got fired for showing up drunk, and apparently he was pissed. A week later, he anonymously tipped off the police. Turns out 2 staff members, a coach and one of the maintenance guys, had been running an illegal sports betting ring out of that building. And not just for fun, they were making thousands. They even roped in some students as runners to collect bets and pay out winners. But here's the craziest part. During the raid, the cops found a hidden room with a safe that had over $40,000 in cash and a list of student names. Nobody really talks about it anymore, mostly because the school tried to bury it hard. The coach retired early, the maintenance guy disappeared, and the janitor who reported it never heard from him again. Like literally, he left town. Sometimes I wonder how deep it really went, and how many teachers knew but stayed quiet. What's something illegal a person in power got away with for years? When I was in high school, we had this history teacher everyone loved, funny, smart, always gave great grades if you made even a tiny effort. He coached the debate team, helped organize charity events, and basically had the reputation of being the cool teacher. Years later, after I'd already graduated, I found out he'd been changing students' grades for money. Legit, he had a system where wealthier parents would donate to certain school programs, and in exchange, their kids' test scores would mysteriously improve. Not failing grades into passing. I'm talking C's into A's, SAT prep into near-perfect mock scores. The craziest part? He wasn't doing it alone. 2 assistant principals were allegedly in on it, helping cover it up in the grade system. It had been going on for at least 5 years. It all came crashing down when a student he refused to help reported him, out of spite. An internal investigation proved most of it. Emails, fake grade logs, etc., but no one went to jail. He resigned quietly. One assistant principal transferred schools, and the other somehow got promoted. The school sent out a generic statement about policy violations, and everything got swept under the rug. But I'll never forget, when I looked up his LinkedIn years later, he was still working in education. Different city, same role.
What's the most messed up thing you found out was happening behind the scenes at your workplace or school? Back when I worked as a part-time IT assistant at a private university, I noticed something odd with the network traffic from one of the admin offices. Huge encrypted file transfers late at night, happening almost daily, all routed through a faculty member's VPN. It wasn't porn, torrents, or even sketchy browsing. It looked organized. I brought it up casually to my supervisor, and he just said, "Don't ask questions about that department. Just make sure the logs stay clean." I thought he was joking. A year later, the FBI raided that office. Turns out the university's financial aid department had been laundering money for a fake scholarship program. International students would apply, send large donations through crypto wallets, and receive forged documents to get student visas. None of them ever came to class. They just used the visa to enter the country for who knows what. The IT logs I had been watching, it was how they moved the forged documents and identities around. 2 admin staff and 1 professor were arrested. The dean claimed ignorance and kept his job. But what really freaked me out was that some of the students on record didn't exist in any physical system, just paper files, like ghosts that passed through legally.
Have you ever experienced something supernatural that no one believes when you tell them? I was 22 when I moved into an old rental house with 2 friends. It was cheap, a little outside the city, and had that classic weird but charming vibe. The landlord told us it used to be a daycare in the 80s. We thought that was kind of cool until the noises started. Every night, around 3:17 a.m., we'd hear faint children's laughter. Always the same. Soft, distant, and always from the hallway. At first, we thought it was animals or sound traveling from a neighbor's house, but it was too specific. Same time, same sound. We even recorded it once, just faint giggling like 2 or 3 kids. One night, I stayed up and sat in the hallway at 3:15 just to see. Nothing happened until the temperature dropped. Like, visibly I could see my breath. Then the lights flickered, and I heard a soft voice behind me say, "We're not done playing yet." I turned. No one. The room behind me was empty, no windows open, no electronics, no one awake but me. We moved out 2 months later, after one of my roommates woke up with crayon drawings all over her bedroom wall. Drawings of us. Stick figures labeled with our names. None of us own crayons. To this day, the landlord swears we imagined it all. But I still have that voice recording. And if you slow it down, there's a second voice underneath the giggling. A man's voice, whispering something none of us can quite translate.
What's a dark family secret you weren't supposed to find out? I found out at 17 that my uncle wasn't actually my uncle. He was my half-brother. My mom got pregnant when she was 15. Her parents, my grandparents, decided to raise the baby as their own to protect the family name. So the boy grew up thinking he was her younger brother, not her son. and I grew up thinking he was my cool, slightly older uncle. No one ever told me anything, until I accidentally found a locked drawer in my grandmother's attic with old documents, including a birth certificate with my mom's name as the mother. I thought it was a mistake, until I asked my mom, and she completely shut down. Later that night, she came into my room crying and told me the whole story. The craziest part? He still doesn't know. He's in his late 20s now, and as far as I know, still thinks my mom is just his sister. We haven't spoken in over a year, because I think she knows I might tell him one day. And honestly, I'm still not sure if I should. What's something you've done that no one else knows about, until now? When I was 19, I got a job at a luxury hotel, working the night shift at the front desk. It was usually slow, mostly rich guests checking in late after flights. One night, a guy came in mid-30s, expensive watch, no bags, paid in cash. Gave off weird vibes. But he tipped me $100 just to make sure no one asked questions. That became a pattern. Same guy, same time. Every 2 or 3 weeks. Always cash, always quiet. After a while, I started checking the cameras after he left. And I noticed something strange. The guests he visited weren't always in the system. Room numbers that were blocked off for maintenance suddenly had visitors. I looked deeper and found files hidden under generic names. No IDs. No real billing info. I didn't say anything. I needed the job. But I started copying records onto a USB drive, just in case. Then one night, he didn't show up. Next morning, I came in for my shift, and they told me one of the blocked-off rooms had been found trashed. No police report. The room was just cleaned up like nothing happened. I quit the next day. I've never used that USB. I still have it, though, hidden in a drawer. And sometimes I wonder if I should have turned it in. What's the scariest thing you've seen in the medical field that never got reported? I used to work as a receptionist at a private cosmetic surgery clinic, the kind that caters to rich clients and influencers. On the surface, everything looked spotless. Modern furniture, iced coffee for patients, ultra-polite staff. But once I got hired, I realized quickly how fake that front really was. The lead surgeon, Dr. K, was highly praised online, with perfect reviews and glowing influencer endorsements. But behind the scenes, he was performing illegal procedures, injecting fillers that weren't FDA approved, using expired anesthetics, and even operating without proper pre-op blood work, especially when patients paid in cash. I once saw a girl pass out mid-liposuction because her file had been swapped with another patient's. Wrong medication. Dr. K made the nurses lie about it on the records, claiming she had a panic reaction, even though she needed an ambulance. They made her sign a waiver while she was still groggy. When I mentioned reporting it anonymously, one of the senior nurses pulled me aside and said, "Do that, and someone will find your address. This place protects its own." So I stayed quiet. But every time I see that doctor go viral on TikTok for his miracle jawline technique, I feel sick. And the worst part, half of the influencers that praise him don't even know he's messed them up long term, because the complications won't show for years.